Ms. Manning. Also, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Van Orden, be allowed to sit on the dais and participate in today's hearing without objection. So ordered, Ms. Manning. And we will certainly miss you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman McCall. Thank you, Ranking Member Meeks. Thank you, Secretary Blinken, for your service and for your answer to that last question. I want to express my appreciation for the Gold Star families in the room today. I have a Gold Star mother on my staff, and I do understand the terrible sacrifices those families make. I must say I am disappointed that we are having yet another hearing on the now 3-year-old withdrawal from Afghanistan. It seems to me that the fall of the Assad regime in Syria and what happens next, including the potential resurgence of ISIS or other terrorist groups, has major consequences for our security and the future of the region, and it would be a much better use of our time to talk about that topic today. So, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully suggest that the committee hold a hearing and a classified briefing on this critical situation, the situation in Syria, next week. Thank you very much.
Running out.
I look forward to that meeting before I'm no longer on this committee. Mr. Secretary, in your view, what are our core interests that are at stake in Syria?
A number of them. First and foremost, of course, is protecting our forces that are there, that remain there. Second is making sure, to the best of our ability, that ISIS does not reconstitute. Through the Obama administration, then the Trump administration, we were successful in eliminating the territorial caliphate that ISIS had developed in Syria. We don't want to see that revive. And in particular, there are thousands of foreign terrorist fighters who are detained in a detention center that is being policed by our Kurdish partners in Syria. We want to make sure that that's preserved. Third, there may be, and I very much hope there is, an opportunity to move Syria away from the disaster of recent decades toward a country that is unified, that reflects all of the different communities that make up Syria, and so that we get a political transition that's inclusive and that brings everyone together. We have an interest in seeing that, because if Syria goes the other way, if it fragments, then we're likely to see more mass migrations. We're likely to see more places in Syria that become centers for terrorism and extremism, none of which is in our interest.
Mr. Secretary, the President-elect has suggested that we have no interest in Syria, that he doesn't want to get involved there when he takes over. What impact would that have if the United States were simply to step aside and wash our hands of what's going on in Syria?
Well, again, as I just said, in fact, there was, I think, a very important success through the Obama administration that was completed by the first Trump administration in eliminating this territorial caliphate that ISIS had established in Syria. That was a job very well done over 2 administrations, and I believe that the incoming administration will have an interest in preserving the gains that it helped achieve.
To what do you attribute the resurgence of the rebels in Syria and the fall of the Assad regime?
I think what we're seeing is a result of a number of factors, but first, all of the outside patrons of the regime, Hezbollah, Iran, Russia, were at the very least distracted and in some cases on the ropes because of problems of their own making and problems that we helped exacerbate for them. Second, Assad's utter refusal to engage in any kind of political process to try to bring the country together, despite everything he'd inflicted on the country, I think that sowed the seeds of his downfall.
I do want to address one thing that we're seeing happen in Afghanistan. And since the fall of Kabul in 2021, we've witnessed the tragic consequences of the takeover of the Taliban, particularly on the Afghan women and girls. Women who had high-ranking positions, who had good productive jobs, are no longer able to work. Girls who were attending school are no longer able to attend school. When I read the Trump-Doha agreement, I was shocked by how few conditions there were in there for the Taliban. There were no protections requested for Afghan women and girls. Since the withdrawal, we've seen the Taliban issue more than 100 edicts targeting women and girls, restricting not just their education and their ability to work, but also their ability to leave their homes, their ability to seek health care services from male providers. And just recently, The Taliban issued an edict suspending medical education for women. We know what this means. Afghan women will eventually be unable to get medical care that they need. This will be a disaster not just for the women of Afghanistan, but for the country. What steps have you taken to push back on those edicts and help the vulnerable Afghan women and girls?
These edicts are abhorrent, and they would take Afghanistan back to the dark ages. From day one, we've worked to do everything we can to defend, support, and where we can empower women and girls in Afghanistan, including having senior officials whose mission is to do just that, including setting up different mechanisms so that their voices can be heard in our policy deliberations and in the international policy deliberations, including when it comes, for example, to recognizing the Taliban. We've sanctioned many members of the
Generally,
Taliban.
time has expired. Chair
I'm happy to
recognizes
follow up.
Ms. Salazar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Blinken, for being here with us. And you know, the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan had ramifications around the world, not only in the Middle East and only including the messages to dictators just like the Taliban, but to other people, specifically the Western Hemisphere. And I just want to concentrate my time on 3 countries that are highly important for